Winston Churchill once famously said, "Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies." This quote seems particularly fitting for the current state of American politics, with the Republican majority in the House facing great speculation and uncertainty in the face of a changing political landscape. Many Americans are wondering whether the Republican majority will once again fall short of expectations, as they did during the Paul Ryan and John Boehner era. However, this time, the stakes are higher, and the Democrats have changed the rules of engagement for the political battlefield. The Republicans must go in with a full understanding of these changes and be prepared to adapt accordingly. Margaret Thatcher's famous words to President George Herbert Walker Bush, "Don't go all wobbly on me now, George," serve as a stark reminder for the Republican Party as they head towards a slim majority in Congress. The Democrats have shown a ruthless determination to wield their majority status over the past 4 years, twice impeaching a sitting president on flimsy charges and creating politically charged committees as a battering ram to achieve their goals. As the Republicans prepare to take the reins of power, they must not go all wobbly in the face of this opposition. They must stand firm in their principles and demonstrate a willingness to fight back against these unjust actions. The Democrats have shown that they will stop at nothing to achieve their political goals, even if it means trampling on the rights and freedoms of their opponents. The Republicans must be prepared to play hardball and meet the Democrats on their own terms. This means being strategic, collaborative, and unafraid to take bold action when necessary. They cannot afford to be complacent or timid in the face of such a determined opposition. Furthermore, the events of January 6, 2021, serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of political inaction. The Democrats used this tragic event as a rallying cry to further their political agenda, and the Republicans must not allow this to happen again. They must show that they are capable of governing effectively and protecting the rights and freedoms of all Americans. The current political climate in America is one of the most polarizing in recent history. The rhetoric coming from the Democratic Party, including labeling Donald Trump, his family, his staff, and even his voters as enemies of democracy, is concerning and does not bode well for the future of our country. Furthermore, calls for Republicans to simply make nice with the Democrats and compromise their principles are misguided at best. This is the equivalent of playing football and then simply taking a knee instead of running the ball towards the goal line. This is not how politics works, and it is not how our democracy is supposed to function. Politics is a full-contact sport, and it is not for the weak of heart. It is played without pads, and it requires a willingness to fight for what you believe in. Compromise and bipartisanship are important, but not at the expense of one's core principles and values. We cannot simply ignore the dangerous rhetoric coming from the Democratic Party and hope for the best. We must be willing to engage in tough conversations, stand up for what we believe in, and fight back against unjust attacks on our democracy. In conclusion, the current political climate in America is concerning, with so many rumors and crazy stuff, and then all of a sudden it just sort of fizzled out, it just went away. It's got to be frustrating to have your name smeared time and again in newspapers and on television, and then suddenly, oh, there's nothing here to see, let's just move on. But this is happening to too many people who challenge the status quo. Is that what was up with going on with you? Well, for folks that pay attention, you see a certain pattern recognition where there's an entire industry built to try to smear and lie about conservatives. We saw it with President Trump, we saw it with my friend Jim Jordan, we saw it with Justice Kavanaugh, and I endured some of the same. Without evidence, without anyone accusing me of misconduct, the media was willing to try and convict me, and 2 things. There were countless rumors and wild accusations surrounding me, but they eventually disappeared without any explanation. It must be frustrating to have your reputation tarnished repeatedly in the media, only to have the allegations suddenly vanish and everyone move on. Unfortunately, this seems to be a common occurrence for individuals who challenge the status quo. It's not just happening to me, but to many others who are conservative. There appears to be an entire industry dedicated to spreading falsehoods and attacking the character of those who don't align with certain political beliefs. This pattern has been seen with President Trump, my colleague Jim Jordan, and Justice Kavanaugh, and I experienced similar treatment. Despite the lack of evidence and absence of accusations of wrongdoing, the media was quick to pass judgment on me. Really, I kept in my heart one is that God does not give us anything that we cannot handle. I firmly believe that. And the second is that you can't ever let the process be the punishment. You know, I think about how tough that was for me, but it's nothing like the tough things that folks in my district are going through. When you can't afford to pay for your medicine and your fuel, when you can't plan for a brighter and more prosperous future because of the impacts of inflation, when mom or dad are deployed to some never-ending foreign war without purpose or focus. And so, I tried to really center myself on the notion that we all go through trials. It certainly is good to be through all of that and focused on the great work we have ahead. But, you know what, now Governor, I think that maybe the hunter is going to become the hunted. Because now the FBI has to show up and answer our questions. The folks at the DOJ who are using political bias as a substitute for following the facts and the law won't just have to answer my questions for 5 minutes like when we were in the minority. They'll have to answer my questions hour after hour, and I can't wait. And I can't either because one of the things I've admired most about you is that you're absolutely unafraid and you want to hold people accountable. And you are one of the, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, one of the most articulate members in Congress from either party. And when you go after somebody, I've always said I'd hate to be in a courtroom with you on the other side of my legal predicament. I just don't want to do that, but investigations can have an impact, Governor. In a divided government, I don't think we should fool people into believing that there's some magical bill that we're going to pass that Chuck Schumer is going to sign on to and that Joe Biden's going to allow. It's not going to happen. But these investigations can change the weaponization of this government. Remember the Ministry of Truth? They were really going to do that. Yes, they were. They were going to use the government to be the arbiter of truth or falsity, to change what people see and how they act and what they believe. And when we exposed it, they had to back down. Anita Jankowicz doesn't work for our government. Matter of fact, she's now a registered foreign agent. That's what they really think of you and what they think of our country. And so, if we expose what's going on the border, if we expose how political the FBI and Department of Justice have become, if we expose how compromised the Biden family is, we can connect the pain that people are feeling right now to the bad decisions. And I think that's got a better chance to force change than to try to go hold hands in the warm spring rain with Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And one of the things that I hope Republicans don't do, and I said this tonight in the monologue, I don't want them to wimp out. And here's the thing, this is not about revenge for what they did to Republicans, what they did to Donald Trump. Not at all. It is about accountability. If people have done things that are in violation of the law and, more specifically, violation of the constitutional principle of separation of powers and of justice that is equal for all, then there has to be accountability for that. Because if there isn't, we've lost our country. Without a doubt, we'll take just, for example, this information from Hunter Biden's laptop, and you look at the way that big government, big media, and big tech all circled the wagons to really perpetrate a fraud on the American people. And now we have whistleblowers that are coming forward to say that when they brought credible evidence of violations of law, they were just told by higher-ups that all had to be classified as Russian disinformation. You represent the district in Congress that has more military members, both active and retired, than any one of the 435 districts in the entire country. 1st District of Florida is a military district. What is it that these military heroes of ours, the active duty and the retired, thank God for every one of them, what is it they tell you that they just want most from their own government? You know, it used to be a new air tower or a longer runway, maybe a new weapon system. But right now, our patriots, the people that wear the uniform, the top of the top, the best of the best, they feel like they are being persecuted through this woke agenda where they're trying to tell people they're naturally oppressors or oppressed because of their race. And like, why is it that it's easier to get drag queen story hour on a military base than a Bible? Than the teachings that our country is founded on? And so, for the first time in my public service, and I have represented these people one way or another since 2010, this new issue matrix around trying to divide us, trying to ostracize our fellow Americans, it's really impacting the morale of the fighting force, and it is impacting recruiting. I mean, when you start telling people that they come from a bad place or a bad state or a bad town, you really limit our ability to attract the best patriots, and we want them to be the best they can possibly be. Matt Gaetz, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Governor. We are looking forward to seeing Matt Gaetz in some of these hearings. You know, Jim, You trying to be a hero, and I'm trying to keep this family safe. Ain't no time for no heroes, and I ain't trying to be no hero, Jimmy. I'm just so thrilled that this story has been put to film. That scene, Governor, was not in the original script. Really? Yes, we actually went to the producers because I thought the film needed a brotherly moment. And to their credit, Heather and Ryan O'Quinn, Ryan plays brother Paul Holderfield, accepted what I had to say. It's like my brother and I. They're fighting each other the whole film, but there's no camaraderie. I think in this film, you need to be able to see that brothers can fight, but they still love each other too. And again, it goes back to brother Paul's big brother praying for his little brother and their mom praying for her wayward kid. If you have a wayward kid out there, you're a prodigal child. I'm telling you, prayer still works. If you go to paulspermismovie.com, there are resources on the site, and the movie is actually going back into theaters. That's something that never happens. It was going to be released for streaming, but the response to it has been so positive. It's going back into theaters in January, and I'm asking you all to do something for me. If you go to paulspermismovie.com, there's a demand button on there. You can hit demand, and you can actually request it in your city. The great story is that if somebody put this as fiction, people would say, yeah, that couldn't happen, right? But this is a true story.